What is up, X? Fucking crazy couple of days. We're going to cover it live. There's literally briefings going on about the active shooter from the Brown University shootings going on right now. We're going to jump into that in just a moment. First, we're going to take a look at the summary from the Bondi Beach shootout because, I mean, this... From what I saw of it, this looks like a scene out of a fucking Rambo movie where these yahoos got their hands on some guns and started just shooting people. I believe the latest number is 59 dead from this shooting. And they managed to capture quite a bit of it on camera. So, graphic content warning. Trigger warning, we're going to take a look at this shooting. You're going to see some live action stuff going on. So if that could be tough for you to watch, please don't watch it. But here is a summary from Crux on the Bondi Beach shootings. And I think this will be quite interesting. If you don't know anything about it, this will break it down for you a bit.
What began as a peaceful Hanukah gathering by the sea turned into one of the deadliest terror attacks in Australia's history.
Yesterday was an act of pure evil, an act of terror, an act of anti-Semitism. An attack on the first day of Hanukah, targeted at the Jewish community. A dark day in Australia's history on what should have been a day of light.
On Sunday evening, families gathered at Bondi Beach in Sydney to mark the first night of Hanukah. Children played near the sand, people sang, prayed and shared food. Around 1,000 people were present. But just before 7 in the evening, gunfire shattered the celebration. Police say the attack began around 6:45 p.m. at Archer Park next to Bondi Beach. Footage shows two gunmen standing on a pedestrian bridge overlooking the park. From there, they opened fire using long guns. Witnesses say the shooting went on for several minutes. People ran in all directions. Many fled barefoot across the sand. Bags, shoes and toys were left behind as panic quickly spread. Multiple videos captured the final phase of the attack. One gunman wearing white trousers left the bridge and moved closer towards the crowd. He positioned himself near a pool and fired at close range. Minutes later, a bystander rushed towards the attacker. Ahmed El-Ahmed, a local fruit seller, tackled the gunman from behind, wrestled the rifle away from him and forced him to retreat. The attacker dropped the weapon and hid behind a tree. Ahmed El-Ahmed was shot twice during the struggle. He was later taken to hospital and remains under medical care. Australian leaders have said his actions saved countless lives.
The doctor is very okay, and next 2 hours they let us to go in and see Ahmed because he's still inside and he do the operation. But we hope he will be fine. He's a hero, 100% he's a hero.
But the pause did not last very long. The attacker in white trousers returned to the bridge with yet another weapon and began firing all over again. The second gunman, wearing black trousers, continued firing in both directions for more than a minute before he too was shot. Police reached the bridge about 7.5 minutes after the footage began. One attacker was dead at the scene, the other was critically wounded. Police later confirmed that the gunmen were father and son, Sajid and Naveed Akram. The father was 50 years old. He arrived in Australia in 1998 on a student visa and later moved to a partner visa. He legally owned 6 firearms and was part of a gun club. He was shot and killed by the police at the scene. The son is 24-year-old Naveed. He was born in Australia and is an Australian citizen. He remains in hospital under police guard and is expected to face charges. Authorities say the son had come to the attention of security agencies in 2019 but was not seen as an immediate threat at that time. Police say 6 firearms owned by the father were recovered. 4 were found at the scene. 2 more were seized during raids at homes linked to the suspects. Bomb disposal teams also removed multiple improvised explosive devices. Two were found near the beach, another was later located at Bondi. Investigators are examining whether the devices were meant to be used during the attack. Australian authorities have officially declared the shooting as a terrorist act. They say the target was clear. The victims were attending a Jewish religious celebration. Police are investigating possible extremist links. Reports say flags linked to the Islamic State group were found inside a vehicle connected to the attackers. Police have not independently confirmed this information. At least 15 people were killed. The youngest was 10-year-old Matilda. She had come with her family to celebrate Hanukah. She later died in hospital. Among the dead were two rabbis, including Rabbi Eli Schlanger, one of the event's organizers. A Holocaust survivor, Alexander Kleitman, was also killed. His family says he died while shielding his wife from gunfire. Other victims included a former police officer, an Israeli citizen, a French national, and a member of the local Jewish community. The oldest victim was 87 years old. More than 40 people were initially taken to hospital. As of Monday, 27 remain under treatment across Sydney. Several are in critical condition. Two police officers were also shot while responding to the attack.
It's just grief, utter grief. Anger will set in, but at the moment it's more disbelief than anything. And on the one hand, I think everyone knew this was going to happen sooner or later with the trajectory that we were on as a society. But for it to actually happen here at our Hanukah event in Bondi Beach, which every year is just the most beautiful family event with kids running around, and you know, it's a celebration. And to think that people were there with heavy weapons, picking off children and the elderly, and
what's crazy is it was all on the up and up. It was all these weapons, explosives, they were all owned legally. Even though the father was of Middle Eastern descent, not that you know, should matter if you don't have any crimes in your background or anything, but that is a factor. And father and son shooting, they quoted 15 here on this summary, but I'm pretty sure the tallies ended up being higher. We'll take a look at that.
Just getting all the facts this morning and hearing about more dead and people dying overnight in the hospital, and the ages of the deceased. You know, a man who I knew very well in his 90s is dead, a survivor of the Holocaust. The rabbi, who's a dear friend of mine and was really a pillar of our community, did so much for everybody. He's among the dead. It's just impossible to rationalize and comprehend that this has happened.
On Monday, thousands gathered at Bondi Pavilion to mourn. Flowers covered the ground, handwritten notes lined the walls. Australian and Israeli flags were raised, prayers were held, and hymns were sung. Leaders from across the country joined members of the Jewish community in silence. World leaders condemned the attack. The United States, Britain, India, Germany, and the United Nations described it as an anti-Semitic act of terror. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu blamed political rhetoric abroad for rising anti-Semitism.
Anti-Semitism is a cancer. It spreads when leaders stay silent. It retreats when leaders act. I call upon you to replace weakness with action, appeasement with resolve. Instead, Prime Minister, you replaced weakness with weakness and appeasement with more appeasement. Your government did nothing to stop the spread of anti-Semitism in Australia. You did nothing to curb the cancer cells that were growing inside your country. You took no action. You let the disease spread. And the result is the horrific attacks on Jews we saw today.
Australian leaders rejected the link but acknowledged growing hate crimes. Australia already has some of the strictest gun laws in the world. Still, the leadership says tougher rules will now be discussed, including limits on gun licenses and ownership.
We're looking at that as we speak. I think it's time that we have a...
It's some pretty harsh words from the Israeli Prime Minister for the Australian Parliament, basically accusing them of not investigating, not looking into, not trying to stop these anti-Semitic groups. But we have to be real. There's only so much you can do within the law. You can't arrest people because they believe and think a certain way. That's insane. And this always happens. There's, plenty of laws on the books, but there's just something so over the top and so hard for people to grapple with. The best thing leadership and lawmakers can think of is to come up with some new law that is going to supposedly fix what went wrong the first time around. So it's always really curious, in my opinion. Now, they talked about the man that wrestled the gun away from the shooter and showed a picture. Here's an actual video, and I just want to say, I think they mentioned his name, but y'all, props. This man right here is a real-life, legitimate hero in the flesh. Do you know how many people out of 100 would do this? Maybe one. Maybe.
You see the man in white there running up and tackling that suspected gunman. There is a struggle, and you can see he appears to wrestle what looks like a shotgun out of that man's hands. Now, the individual in white has not at this point been identified, but local leaders are hailing what they say were extraordinary acts of personal courage by people who just jumped in at the scene. It is very likely that that man saved some lives by appearing to disarm that gunman. We know that at least
100%.
29 people were taken to hospital. Among them are 2 police officers. Authorities are saying police were on the scene and engaging in a gun battle with these shooters within just minutes. Police are also saying that they found a car linked to the killed gunman, which does appear to contain improvised explosive devices. Now, the bomb squad there in Sydney is probing that vehicle. They are looking for more clues. They are looking for more details about the motives. And Willie, a massive police investigation is now underway. But we can already say at this point that this is one of the worst gun massacres in Australian history.
We thank you for watching.
Unbelievable. I mean, okay. I'm going to look into the most recent news on that, see if we have some updated numbers on total lives lost. There was a shooting in this country at Brown University that's very peculiar, because this was not, at least it does not seem like these shootings we hear about where folks snap or whatever. They go into a school, they go into their work, they start shooting up everyone. This seemed more like a targeted attack. I believe there's only 2 individuals in this case that lost their lives, and the gunman just kind of has disappeared, and we still don't know where he is. So this was just a few hours ago on Fox. Let's take a listen here. Some of the more recent updates on this shooting.
All right, let's go to Providence. Police releasing new enhanced video giving us a better look at the person of interest in the deadly Brown University shooting.
Paul Morrow is live on the Brown University campus in Providence, Rhode Island. Hey, Paul.
So good morning, gang. Providence police say they have video showing the person of interest casing out the area here in Providence as early as 10:35 on Saturday, around 5.5 hours prior to the shooting. Now, the Attorney General says so far the video that's been released is the best they have of this person of interest. Police have no information about how old he is and nothing to suggest that this is a Brown University student or staff member. They're hoping someone in the public will recognize this person's body movements, the posture, how they're carrying their weight. The FBI has also released new videos showing that this person of interest walked past the engineering building at 2:53, roughly 1 hour before the shoot. And then we have this one taken after the attack, showing the man walking back into the residential area, the area that the police are surveying. It was all captured by a surveillance camera outside the building. Now, all this comes as a map shows the camera coverage on the campus had a clear blind spot with no footage where the shooting actually took place. Brown University's president was on the defensive yesterday amid questions over the lack of cameras.
The shooter is responsible. Horrific gun violence took the lives of these students and hospitalized others. And it's deeply sad and tragic that schools across the country are targets of violence. Brown is no exception.
Now, investigators admit they have a lot more area to canvass. Right now, they're walking through 200 tips. But according to Brown University student body president, lack of answers is concerning.
We have been concerned and confused and hoping that there's more progress in the case. But I also do see that the campus is working really hard and doing everything that they can. There's definitely uneasiness with the gunman not being in custody. General mood I've been feeling is like getting the air knocked out of you. It's pretty sad on campus.
Now, police say there's no evidence to suggest that anyone was actually targeted in the shooting. They are now asking people in the area to check their surveillance video at home for any possible clues.
So now that you're there, Paul, do you believe more than likely than not that the shooter knew this was at the edge of campus and had a clue that there were no cameras there? Now we find out there's not 800 cameras, there was 1,200 cameras at Brown, but this old building didn't have many, and he was able to get out and get right off campus almost immediately. Does it seem as if it was plotted and planned that way?
Yeah, Brian, I think you go right to the salient point. 1,200 cameras. The first thing I would ask is, were all of them working? Camera systems are notorious for going out. They lie moribund. Nobody checks in them. If you're not really monitoring these things, they're not always working. Every cop has that story, sees the camera, thinks they're going to get a quick solve, and lo and behold, the thing doesn't work. As Brian Yennis noted yesterday, this all occurred on the edge of what is a very well-off residential area. If you walk this neighborhood, and I've done it this morning a bit, not only are the houses walled off in many instances, they're set well back from the street. That's a bad break for the police because any ring cameras likely only pick up the curtilage, as they call it, the area just around the house. The idea that some of these houses, which are behind walls and set well back, are going to pick up important video from the street is a little bit of a Hail Mary at this point, and I see why now they're having so much difficulty as they fan out to try to get better ring video.
So, Paul, you and I, we covered Idaho together, and it was a PR nightmare. Some of the stuff was conflicting. It seemed like they didn't have as much evidence. But lo and behold, behind the scenes, even though the leadership kind of scuffed, made some mistakes, the real detectives were working the case. Do you suppose that the same thing could be happening right now?
I do, and actually I've been advocating for that, Lawrence, and yeah, you're right, you and I were out there and we dealt with all the negative incoming that those cops, that task force were taking, and it took 6 weeks. We're only a few days after this one, but everybody forgets about those 6 weeks, and it became a paragon of policing. People talk about what a great job that task force did, and people forget that for 6 weeks they were called Keystone Cops. There's a lot of electronic stuff, digital forensics that can and will be done, certainly, especially with the addition of the FBI in the case. But unfortunately, that's meticulous work that takes time. You can bet that they are grinding on this. I can tell you that these cops here want to solve this more than anybody, and I'm sure that stuff is going on as you and I speak.
Paul, how are they able to say this is the suspect? Do they get the witnesses that were in the classroom to go to the police station? They play video for them, show them who's walking around on campus and identify him?
You know, that's an excellent question. I've been wondering that myself. They really do seem to believe, probably based on the timeline that they've put out in terms of the egress and ingress. It's on the corner, that initial video that they put out. It's hard to describe without showing it, but the building behind me is where it all occurred. He comes out on the other side of the building and then makes a right. Apparently, they've been able to account for pretty much everybody else except for this individual. And the fact that nobody has come forward and said, hey, wait a minute, I'm seeing these videos. That's me. I had nothing to do with this. I think probably has only raised them up a little bit further. And you got to wonder, are they saying to themselves, okay, if we've identified pretty much everybody else in the building and this guy is the person that's the outlier, well, let's look at everybody who is under 5'8", with that body type who's been in the engineering school or the engineering program for the last 5 years. You're going to have to start now, in addition to the forensics and everything else, taking some educated guesses and doing some real grind work, knocking on doors and saying, account for yourself, where were you?
But Paul, you got to mention the elephant in the room, which is they've already done this before with a suspect, in the sense of they grabbed someone, they didn't stop the investigation, but they stopped the manhunt. And they're putting all their stock into this guy right now. Even though the investigation continues, there is a possibility that this couldn't be the guy.
Yeah, you're right. There's a very good possibility that it is. They seem to be pretty sure, but you're 100% right. The good news is that generally when people do stuff like this, generally, if it does indeed have an ideological purpose, they talk, they're in contact with others. So the hope is at some point somebody here is going to give him up. But look at Koberger. He was very much a lone wolf, and his motives were not what anybody suspected. A lot of us thought there must be some sort of a sex crime embedded with that, and there was not. The only thing I would say, Lawrence, is that, you know, blind alley leads occur in every investigation. You go down alleys. True. The thing that we thought was the solve on Saturday night, turns out the kid was able to demonstrate from the video in the hotel and from the key card that he actually did never leave the hotel room. And so they washed that lead out, even though it looked very, very good. People say that, oh, there are no coincidences, and investigations have never done one. They, of course, have them. And that's a blind lead that you have to chase. They seem to feel pretty good that this is their guy, but it could be all they have.
Well, apparently, if they're continuing to release this.
So I don't, not to correct the journalist here, I was actually raised by an officer. My father became a detective, I think it was around year 12 of his career or so. And it's not necessarily that there's never any coincidences in an investigation or a murder. It's just that as an investigator, you have to view things that way, because then you're going to investigate. So like typically the majority of the time, if you're dealing with some type of high profile murder case, and you pick up a coincidence between contacts, involved parties, that usually indicates a connection, right? Because we know most people are murdered by someone that they know. That's just the facts of the case. The facts of the case. That's just the facts of the numbers, the statistics. That's why serial killers are so difficult to find, because they murder people that they oftentimes have zero connection to. And so the investigators looking into that, they literally have nothing to go off of. Was this completely random? They're still not able to find this active shooter. Or was this targeted, which makes me want to, you know, I think we should look into who these victims were, because obviously I think that's going to matter. So this is a piece that came out on CBS News just today, I think about an hour ago. The police have released the victims' identities. And so let's learn a little bit about who this gentleman killed.
Rhode Island, where officials have released the person of interest in the fatal mass shooting at Brown University. The search now continues for the shooter behind this weekend's attack that left 2 students dead and 9 others injured. Officials released this surveillance footage showing the person they believe carried out the shooting on Saturday. Police called on the public to send them any additional video evidence that could help with the investigation, and that includes ring footage and videos taken inside buildings on campus. They say there is no immediate threats to the public at the moment. Now, this is dramatic footage inside a classroom during the attack, and you can see students hiding behind tables and desks during the emergency shelter-in-place order. Police escorted those students from the classroom moments later. Still, the community mourns the loss of their fellow classmates. One student spoke about his roommate, who he says was killed during the shooting.
Just a ball of joy, a ball of energy. He's honestly makes sure everybody else he raises everybody else to a certain level. He makes sure you have your stuff done. He makes sure he has his stuff done. He's just always there. I mean, I can't say it's not my imaginations, because it's kind of become a mundane thing in America at this point. And I feel like it's so usual that everybody else kind of like desensitized to it at some point. So when I heard it, it wasn't like, oh, it doesn't make sense, but it was like, oh, where's everybody else? Where's my loved ones? Where's my friends? Where can I account for everybody? So you start texting people, you start making sure everybody's safe. You know, you just got to be on your P's and Q's at that point.
And CBS News has confirmed the identities of the 2 victims killed in the shooting. You can see them on your screen here. We continue to learn more about those 2 victims, and we'll bring you updates as they come into our newsroom. CBS News correspondent Jared Hill is live at the campus with the latest on the shooting. Jared, what else do police know about the shooting, and do they have any other evidence besides security video right now?
That's a big question, Mugo, because what we know at this point is that they're saying there isn't a ton of video evidence in or around the school where this happened. And so that's why they're asking for the public to come forward with anything that they might have that could help figure out who this person is and where they might be. Just yesterday, one of the officials said that they're not sure if this person is in the city of Providence, if they are in the state of Rhode Island, where they are at all. And so that is one of the things that they're really working on now, is trying to get the public to once again put forward any kind of tips, any information that they might have. Just a couple of minutes ago, we started to see the activity around this building here behind me where the shooting happened increase a bit more, with crews looking through trash cans and around the area. Again, as this investigation continues and in some ways ramps up in a way that we thought was different from yesterday.
Yeah, and what's the condition of those who were injured in this tragedy? And also, I have to ask about what you're hearing from the community, too.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things here. When it comes to what we're hearing from the community, this would ordinarily be, again, around finals week. And so students getting ready, studying. We were just at a coffee shop nearby where my producer said she spoke to the manager, who said that it was dead quiet, essentially, there. It was completely quiet in a way that it wouldn't ordinarily be. You would typically have students there studying, getting ready for classes, getting ready for finals. That's not happening anymore. When it comes to these students who are injured in this shooting, we know at least one of them has been released from the hospital. The others are in stable condition. Their conditions obviously still concerning enough to be in the hospital, to be in the hospital care, but it seems as though they have not changed from our last checks.
Okay. Jared Hill, thank you so much for your reporting.
Wow. So still, it seems like there's still very little known. We are going to hop on over to this live university news conference and see if we get any new kind of breaking news on who this person is. Now, I know there are some rumors about this person being like a pro-Palestinian.
We released this enhanced photo earlier today, and
type person.
That this is a person that we would like to speak with.
But I think at this person, it's at this time it's unconfirmed.
We have been watching for a few days. They may have relevant information to the investigation. So we're asking the public that you can help us identify who this individual is, as well as the individual themselves sees their picture, to please contact the police department. As far as one thing that I want to mention, I want to urge you, the public, not to rely on or circulate AI generated images that are currently being shared on social media, as they're not verified or credible. As well, the updates and information that you're getting will be provided exclusively through this department's official channels. I want to make sure that we make that happen, and please notify the public to make sure that that occurs. I would also like to clarify and show a map. Please, if you can play the map. So the map here that you see is actually a map of the area that we have been intensively walking on those streets, canvassing the area. So as you see the blue image, yesterday I mentioned that we need the public's assistance to check their camera assistance or any sort of video that you may have that could be helpful to us, that you, as you're watching it or as you're reviewing it, you feel there may be something that we can use please notify us. And if you need any help with that, viewing those videos, please also call us. We can come over and help you. The green area, that's color, that's when we have confirmed where the subject was prior to the shooting. The red areas, we have also confirmed that that's the immediate area where he left after the shooting. And so this is the map that actually we have so far. We walked it all. We're still actively investigating, and we're still actively having agents, Providence police officers, members of the state police. There's about 9 federal agencies that are assisting us with this investigation, adding the state police as well as the Providence police and other municipalities. Again, I would like to reiterate, if you have any tips, please call the 272-3121 or the FBI link at fbi.gov/Brown University shooting. Thank you.
Attorney General Peter Nerona for an update. Okay, thank you, General. One additional update from me, and then we'll be happy to take your questions. First, I want to just take a moment to recognize and honor the memory of Ella Cook and Muhammad Aziz Umerzakov, who are the 2 deceased victims from this tragedy, and update you on the status of the survivors. Yesterday, we mentioned that one individual had been discharged. I'm happy to report that another individual has been discharged today. That leaves 1 survivor in critical but stable condition and 5 in stable conditions. The parents that I spoke with today all reported that their kids were improving. So this is a happy announcement, but I know the entire Providence community, the entire state of Rhode Island, the governor and I were together at a memorial service last night, mourn the loss and offer our most sincere condolences to the Cook and Umerzakov families. Following up on a note that the Colonel made with respect to AI-generated images and other misinformation, we have created an online folder with all of the video and images that have been released. And we encourage both members of the press, but also members of the community. We know lots of people are sharing information, and we appreciate that. We think that will help with this investigation. But we encourage them to download and share the videos and photos from the website that has been created so that you can ensure that you're sharing an accurate and verified photo and video. That website is now live. It is providenceri.gov/tips, TIPS. providenceri.gov/tips is an online file folder that has the videos and photos that have been released to date, and it will be updated as we progress. There's been lots of conversation up here about the heroic work of the hundreds of law enforcement professionals who remain hard at work 24 hours a day and who are in fact making progress. I want to close with one additional thank you tonight. All of those tip line calls are coming into the city's telecommunications department, the same folks who answer the 911 calls, and they too have been working tirelessly, and I want to thank the men and women at dispatch and at telecommunications for their diligence. Everyone in the city of Providence truly has a role to play in this investigation, and we're grateful for their assistance. We'll take your questions. John.
Colonel, I have a question for Colonel regarding the map. As he's walking around, I want to establish actually, what's the earliest that this person of interest emerges? I believe you had said Saturday morning at 10:30, but then someone else said maybe a couple days earlier. And I recognize that it fluctuates and this is evolving. But as of right now, what's the earliest that this individual, to your knowledge, shows up on a camera?
About 10:30 a.m. on the date of this tragic incident. However, so like anything else, I also mentioned yesterday that they do case the areas. They do a lot of prior checking for their crime, and so we truly believe that it could be that possibly it was there prior as well. And so we want to make sure that we don't miss anything. And so that's why we're asking the public to help us to ensure within that map area that I mentioned with the borders between Wicked Brook, all those areas, Gano, that if you have a camera system to reach out to us.
I was in along I Street, Gano today. Tremendous number of federal officials literally going door to door. Would you say this? How would you describe? I mean, it just seems that this is probably right now the most massive, intensive manhunt going on in the world.
I think I agree with you on that, John, and definitely commend the men of the men, women, obviously, and all our federal partners. It's a lot of work, and it's intense, as you stated. It takes a lot to be able to knock on doors, see videos, there's terabytes of videos that you have to look, and I mentioned it yesterday. We're looking for a moment that takes almost less than a second, and if you miss it, you're missing something that could be critical and important for us to use. And so, yes, it's definitely an intense, and I believe that is probably the most intense investigation going on right now in this nation.
Colonel, the second person that you want to talk to, can you drill down at all on any interactions that you believe he may have had with the main person of interest? The way he talked to him, how close was he to him? Any interactions? What can you tell us?
So yeah, we have video footage of that determines to us and the detectives that can tell that this person was in the vicinity where the subject of interest was that we wanted that we actually have an interest on. Close enough that we feel that we need to speak with them to find out what because videos don't speak. If you think about it, I wish the video could speak, and then I'll have the answers that we need to, so that we can continue on this investigation. So we're trying to find out exactly what it is, and that's why we need to speak with them. Please.
Does this person, this new individual, have anything to do with why the person of interest was seen running in the surveillance footage?
Again, I wish the videos could speak. We're trying to get those answers.
And have you found any items of interest during your search, specifically clothing?
Nothing as we speak, no.
Up front here.
Who among law enforcement or other first responders was first on the scene that day, and who came next?
So Brown University was on scene, and then immediately the Providence Police Department within minutes was there.
Back there, the green jacket.
We released a video from 216 on the day of the shooting, where we see the person of interest come into contact or near another person. Is that the moment that you think this new person and the person of interest might have come close?
That's correct. It's around the area of Benevolent and Cook.
So behind the Rhode Island Historical Society, that corner of Georgia?
Right near that area, correct.
And you had some searches going on in North Attleboro today. Is that connected at all to this case?
I can't confirm. We're all over the place. If a tip comes in and he needs us to go down to Connecticut, we're going down to Connecticut. If a tip comes in and tells us that we got to go to Boston, we're going to Boston.
Right there in the middle, the green jacket. Go ahead.
Is it possible that the second person could become a person of interest?
All we know is that that person was in the vicinity of the subject that we have an interest on, and we want to speak with them.
Listen, great.
Yes, so pretty much the question is just if we can explain in Spanish exactly why we're looking for this individual, or why do we want to speak with them. So, esta persona verdaderamente es alguien que nosotros tenemos un interés de hablar con ellos porque estaba en la área inmediata donde este individuo estaba. Entonces queremos saber más de por qué estaba ahí para explicar la razón y qué interacción hubo.
¿Tienen algún indicativo de que la persona que cometió el tiroteo actuó sola o actuó con alguien más?
Eso es lo que estamos investigando.
My question is, have you found any DNA evidence from the crime scene or the area that you believe might belong to the shooter?
So we have found a lot of evidence that we need to, and we use and utilize it to hopefully guide us in the right direction in order to identify the individual that we're looking for.
Any of that been DNA evidence?
This actual physical evidence, there's DNA evidence, there's a lot of evidence that we're collecting to ensure that we can find the answer.
Pat.
A question for Attorney General Noronha. My understanding from your conversations over the last few days is that the Attorney General's office is taking the lead in terms of doing the investigation. My question is, what's the relationship between the Attorney General's office and the Rhode Island State Police? We haven't heard much from over the last few days in terms of who's doing what and what type of time commitment. I do have a follow-up.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we're leading it. I think that we are working closely with our law enforcement investigators. So you divide, I think you can divide, in a case like this, the people involved into two groups. So there are at least five prosecutors that have been here since Saturday night. I've been here for a fair chunk of it myself, particularly after hours back at the office. But what those prosecutors are doing, Pat, is asking questions, helping to narrow.
I think definitely the picture of the first guy they showed is probably the guy, or the person of interest that may be the shooter. The body type seemed very similar, kind of pudgy. We couldn't see him walk from those photos. We couldn't see if he had that kind of same gait, but I'm guessing that's who they have pegged as a person of interest.
Yeah, the Colonel can answer that, but before you do, Colonel, I just want to make sure that I answer it as well. One of the images that I have most keenly in my mind from a couple nights ago is a state police lieutenant or Derek Melfi talking to John Permiano of the Providence Police, talking to Colin Woods of the FBI, and identifying a certain piece of video evidence that's important in this investigation. And that's how intertwined and cohesive it is, while prosecutors look on and engage at the same time.
So I addressed this question a couple of days ago. So this is a very collaborative effort between all of law enforcement, between the Providence Police, the state police, all of our federal partners. We will continue to develop leads and follow that with the evidence that comes along with that until this perpetrator is apprehended.
Thank you. I have one quick follow-up for the gentleman from Brown University.
Yep.
Can you say for the record and with complete certainty that every bit of digital mass surveillance, whatever type of evidence was collected by the infrastructure of Brown University has been turned over to the Providence Police Department as well as the Attorney General's office? Is the Brown University withholding anything, for the record?
For the record, we are cooperating 100% with law enforcement. We are turning over everything we have to assist in this investigation.
And you have a map, and they are fully aware of whatever surveillance is being taken?
All materials are being provided to law enforcement.
Tom.
Mayor, thank you very much. Regarding the new person of interest video, who may have had contact with the primary person? Does law enforcement not have the capability to identify and find someone when you have like full face recognition without exposing them to public scrutiny?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something where you have to investigate. If you don't know who that person is, it's very difficult, and especially if the image is blurred, it's very difficult to identify him. And so if we had that availability to be able to identify him without the assistance of the public, we would. So at this point, we do not, and that's why we're putting it out to the public to assist us in identifying who this person is.
And then with this person of interest that you're looking at today, or the subject that you released today, are we sure it's a man? I know it was brought up in the question before, it could be a man, but are we 100% sure it's a man, or could it be a woman as well?
It's a person that we would like to at least speak with.
But you know, there's no giving a gender at this time?
No, there isn't.
Colonel, there's a black
Patrick.
satchel that the main person of interest was carrying. In some images, he is seen with it. Some images, he is seen without
Sorry,
it.
man.
Have you recovered that black satchel? Do you know if can you tell us whether he was wearing that strapped over his shoulder?
Yes.
Was he wearing it before the shooting, after the shooting?
He's wearing it at times, definitely on and off, and I think I addressed that yesterday. Obviously, that we see him in the video with it, and then at times we don't see him, just like you stated. So we're assuming that he actually hid it under the coat that he was wearing, but we don't have it, no.
Patrick.
For Colonel Perez.
Yes.
The map that you showed, it looks like the perimeter has moved south into the Fox Point area from the immediate places where we've seen video footage. Can you tell me why the level of interest has moved south of the shooting site and into the Fox Point area? Is there new video footage? Is there additional evidence that points towards that area?
I mean, the investigation is intensive, so we're following his path. And he's getting us, the last place we saw him was right at Ives near Pittman. And so that's sort of south, and we're going to continue to check, but that's the last place that we saw him. That's why we moved south, and we may continue to move. It all depends. We want to see as far as we can, how far we can go to identify him.
Are there any other sightings or anything else downright? I mean, that you've extended all the way to like Wickedon, where we don't have any.
Correct. We're at Ives and Pittman right now, but potentially could lead us further down to Butler. It could lead
Yo,
us
they
further
don't
down
got
south, so we just wanna make sure
shit
we're covered.
on this guy. Not a fucking thing.
How many students were in that classroom? Sadly, 2 lost their lives, 9 others injured, encouraged about the update today. But can you now say how many kids were in that classroom? And did the gunman come in from the back so these people never knew it was coming? Or did he come in front with full view of everybody?
And that's all part of the interviews, and actually we're cooperating with Brown to get the roster. That was a study hall, so we don't have the number. We're still getting information as far as who was there. I know Brown sent out an email to the students to notify us if they were present, and we're still getting that, so I can't give you an exact account now.
Okay, and then just to follow up, you did say that you lost sight of the gunman at some specific road
Correct.
outside of your perimeter. What
No,
happened?
it's within the perimeter, Steve, yeah.
Right, and then what happened with him after that? There's no, you have no video where he could have gone
We're,
from there?
we're still out there as we speak. There's people out, there's detectives out there, there's task force officers. We're trying to figure out what are the locations we can find, but we haven't found anything else. But we're knocking on doors and making sure, and that's why I'm putting out the call to the public to assist us. If you happen to be within that box, that borders exactly where we want you to look, then that's exactly why we're here.
Second row
Yeah. Inside the classroom, you've done your interviews, you continue to do your interviews. The description that eyewitnesses are giving, does it match the primary person of interest? And what can you say more about the weapon? You know that the TA said that he saw a gun that was so big and so long. Is it possible at this point that the gunman had multiple weapons? Can you swear that?
Yeah, there's definitely, the interviews are definitely telling us that that's the description that we have. And yes, they're describing the weapon. Some people, obviously, you can think it was chaos. And so, well, we're definitely getting some info as far as what the weapon looked like and exactly what was going on in that room, so.
You don't think there's multiple weapons?
No, just that individual.
I just want to jump in here too, because you know, you mentioned a long gun. We are not in a position to say, unless the chief, you want to square it, whether this was a long gun or not. I think that there's been an account from the TA. There are multiple accounts about multiple things, including how this gunman approached the victims. Those are not details that advance the investigation. Why not? They don't advance the investigation because as we interview witnesses, we don't want them to learn facts from these press conferences. We want them to relay the facts that they have in their heads, including a person of interest. So we don't want a person of interest to shape what they're telling us based on what we know as expressed to you about those kinds of details, sir, that you asked. So we're being careful about the facts that we're sharing for that reason, so that when we talk to witnesses, what we're getting is their factual recitation. And as you might imagine, in a situation where there is chaos, and look, people are ducking for cover as well they should have, you are going to get different accounts, and part of what's going on now is reconciling those accounts. And I don't know, Chief, if you want to weigh in more about the weapon, but I don't want anyone to leave this room thinking that this weapon was a long gun, because that would be a misperception from what I know.
Alex.
In the video released yesterday, it appears that the person of interest is going by a police cruiser that has its lights on. Does that mean that the dash cam in that cruiser was on and activated, and have police been able to recover anything useful from that video?
So that was a brown police cruiser, and I'm not sure if they have body cameras in their cruisers. I don't think they do.
Dash cam, no.
That's, no. I don't want to
And
answer
then my
the
next
chief.
follow-up question would be, are you working with flock camera experts to try and recover anything from those cameras as well?
So as you know, we work with Flock, we have LPRs in the city, and we're utilizing every resource we can. Yes, Alex.
Brian.
Colonel, you mentioned there is other evidence, but at this point, how much of this investigation turns on the public identifying who's in those images? And are you discouraged or surprised that after a couple days of being out there, you haven't gotten anything more concrete?
No, I think this is, like I said earlier, it's a very intense investigation, and I think it's going to take public assistance. It's actually going to take, obviously, 21st century policing involving technology, but it's also going to take good old-fashioned police work, which is knocking on doors, retrieving evidence, going through yards, talking to witnesses. It's going to take all that and more, Brian.
And no one's discouraged. I mean, I've been in that command post. No one's discouraged. I mean, leads are coming in, they're being run to ground, and no one's discouraged. Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been in the command post, as the colonel has, and no one's discouraged. I mean, I get, when I'm not there, I get hourly reports from my own team, and there's an enormous amount of energy for people who have been working as hard as they have been. I'm really quite impressed by that, frankly, and there's no discouragement among people who understand that not every case is a case that can be solved quickly. In my view, they get solved. It's just a matter of time, and this case will get solved too.
Would you have a message or an appeal to the shooter or anybody who may think they know who they are, who may be on the fence?
Well, look, certainly it would behoove everyone, including the shooter, to provide information to law enforcement and to the shooter to turn himself in. He will be caught, and it's just a matter of time before we catch him. And I believe that based on my experience, but also from watching the people in that command post and getting reports.
Behoove. That's a term that just doesn't get used enough. The first time I heard that term, I was 21 years old, 21. And I was in basic training, and we had this drill sergeant, Drill Sergeant McDaniel, and he would always tell us, it would behoove you to get your shit straight. It would behoove you to do this. It would behoove you to do that. And just a word that doesn't get used enough. So I like the Attorney General's use of it. So we've been looking at updates, and they still have not caught this guy, y'all. It's still out there running around.
From where they're coming back out in the field, they know what they're doing, they're experienced, they're working hard. There's no lack of resources. Everyone's working really well together. And we're going to crack this case. And when we crack it, it's going to come open really quickly.
Straight back, the best.
Thank you. For you, Mayor, have you spoken with local business owners about how much this is impacting their bottom line, especially during the holiday season, and any concerns that they might have about the situation?
Yeah, I have. It's hard work being a small business owner, and this time of year is critical to them. There's a commercial district just off campus called Thayer Street. Those businesses are particularly struggling as both students went home early and some people are avoiding the area. Similarly, there's a couple other commercial districts nearby the area, which is Wickenden Street, as has been discussed here tonight, and Wayland Square. The city's Department of Economic Development, in partnership with the Greater Providence Chamber.
I mean, when you have an active shooter on the loose, that's going to happen.
Of Commerce is reaching out to those business owners to look at assistance programs or otherwise try to support them to ensure that their businesses can stay healthy and vibrant through this.
Do you know when those might take effect?
Those conversations started yesterday, and so we're working with the various merchants associations to try to determine what sort of assistance might be most helpful, and when it's ready to announce, we will. Thanks. Please.
My question's for the Colonel. So looking at this new map, there's more video so far of him before than there is after the shooting. Do you think that the person of interest got to the vehicle somewhere within this area, and are you going to go through license plate readers?
Absolutely, yeah, we're looking for that evidence, if there was any vehicles involved. And yes, you're right, he was there earlier, and so that's why we're looking at that as well. And definitely we're using, I mentioned that earlier, the LPRs, the flock, any cameras. That's why we're making a call out to the public to assist us with that. It's all part of those resources that we're going to need, as the general stated, to make that apprehension.
Dan.
I have a question to follow first to the Attorney General. Attorney General Dan Janick, NBC 10.
Hi, Dan.
You had said the other day that you released the person of interest because the DNA didn't match, which would assume that there was DNA of the person of interest in that room. Can you tell us what it was, and if he hasn't committed a crime before, how it makes it a little bit more difficult?
Yeah, so DNA, when it's entered into a nationwide system, can confirm the identity of a suspect or subject. And certainly the advantage here is that when we find a person of interest, and we can get a search warrant for what we call a buccal swab, we can compare that to a known quantum of evidence. That can rule people in and obviously can rule people out. That's a powerful piece of evidence, but it's not the only evidence. And to And relatedly to the question about, do we need only the public is going to really help us here by identifying this person. But at the same time, there are other leads coming in through other forms of electronic and other evidence that are taking multiple teams out in different directions. And we're able, through a variety of means, not just DNA evidence, to rule people in or rule people out. And it's a combination of really impressive work by, vector experts in various forms of modern law enforcement techniques.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah.
So I asked this question out of deep respect, but I asked it for a lot of parents who are frustrated who reached out to me, so please keep that in mind. And they want to know how a school with a $9 billion endowment does not have cameras on one of the older buildings at the edge of the campus where this happened, not even in the front door, who's coming and going. Now, they asked this question knowing that the shooter may have done whatever he wanted, but the cameras, A, would have deterred, or B, captured a better look at them, and we wouldn't be here today 5 days out. I want you to explain that, because there's a lot of parents who are wondering, where are you investing your money?
Yeah, I appreciate that question, and I want to reiterate, as our president did, that supporting our students and communicating to the parents, to our community about our support is of utmost importance. We have 1,200 cameras located throughout the campus. We don't publish the locations of the cameras. That would give a map to somebody to evade detection on the cameras. So that would be counterproductive to do that. There are cameras in this building, and as I answered the previous question, we have turned over all evidence that we are holding at Brown to law enforcement and are cooperating fully with them.
So you're saying that there's a camera, you're saying there's cameras in the building. I was told yesterday there wasn't cameras in the building. The Attorney General said, old building, no cameras, attached to a new building with cameras.
I believe he said that there were 2 different phases of the building that might have 2 different levels of technology. Again, all video imagery has been turned over to law enforcement.
That doesn't make sense.
Amanda.
Okay, I have a question for the chief and a question for the FBI.
Chief, how you doing, Amanda?
So, looking at this person of interest, and from witness descriptions, it appears that this person had a genuine familiarity with Brown, possibly with that building as well. Have you, in questioning people, have you questioned and eliminated any Brown employees, current, former, disgruntled, facing discipline, any type of complaints?
Yeah, at this point, it's unknown to us. I think that the investigation is on, but it's unknown to us where this person works. It's unknown to us if he was an affiliate of Brown.
All right, so we're just going to get a lot of the same there. Unknowns. We did have an interview with a Providence, Rhode Island council member on News Nation just shortly after this briefing. Let's hear what the local councilman has to say about the briefing here.
The story in Rhode Island now as the search continues for a person of interest in the Brown University shooting. They have released new images today of an individual who may have been near the potential suspect. These are the images. So that came out today. What we're waiting for now is an update. Investigators should have that, and we'll carry it live as soon as it starts. That's coming soon. We move now to Providence Councilman John Gonsalves, who joins us right now. Thank you for coming on, Councilman. We appreciate it. The community there, and looking at our own reporting and others, seems to be, I guess frustrated is the right word, with some of the response, or just the fact that this person, whoever did this, is still out there. A lot of talk about cameras and whether there should have been more. Do you understand that, and are you hearing that frustration in your area?
Thanks for having me, Connell. We're certainly hearing that frustration, and we're coordinating closely with the city, Brown University, and community partners to make sure that we can hold whoever did this accountable. But we're heartbroken by the loss that our community has suffered following this tragic shooting at Brown University, which is also my alma mater. These 2 students, Ella Cook and Muhammad Aziz Umorzakov, they were gunned down, and several others were wounded while preparing for their final exams, and that's unacceptable. There's nothing I can say that'll bring them back. But we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that this individual is brought to justice.
What about the cameras, like in the building where it happened? Even the president put something on social media. Why did Brown University have so few security cameras? No excuse for that in the modern age. Doesn't get worse. What would you say, not about that post, but about that issue, that there were cameras in the building, new addition, older part of the building? Apparently, they told us not as many.
Look, that's not something that people should be speculating about. There are cameras in our community. We are trying to track down every single lead. And to that end, I should be very explicit about this. There's a lot of misinformation that's circulating, even in our own city. There's high anxiety at the moment, and there are AI-generated images and unverified claims that are.
So what do you mean by misinformation on that, so we're clear? Because I'm going on the news conference last night when the state attorney general came up and said, well, in certain areas, including the area where the shooting itself took place, they didn't have footage.
Yes, and I think federal investigators and local law enforcement, they're combing through a lot of footage at the moment, but there is also a lot of irresponsible and very dangerous content that's being put out there. As my great Senator Whitehouse said, this stupid and ill-informed things that are being put out there. We just need people to kind of shut up on that. This false information is only distracting from the investigation and harms families and innocent individuals. We're combing through as much footage as possible. We're looking at a lot of camera footage, but we need folks to let the Providence Police Department and the FBI do their jobs, and for folks to stop sharing unverified content, because that misinformation is rampant.
No, I hear you on that point, and that's always true, especially in this day and age with so much stuff just put out on the internet. I hear that point, but are you saying you've seen footage that the rest of us haven't seen? Is there more footage that's going to come out? I mean, what are you hinting at, if anything?
Well, I can't speak to that. The situation remains active and evolving. Law enforcement agencies, as we've shared, including the Providence Police Department, the FBI. I want to thank Director Patel for his help here, and state partners continue a coordinated manhunt for this person of interest, and that investigation is ongoing. We'll have more to share, but it's important for folks not to speculate. We're in this moment of incredible tragedy in our city, and right now we are all on one mission, and that's to find the person who committed this horrific act and to hold them fully accountable. I know there's a lot of finger pointing, but there's really no room for division or speculation in this moment. Every local, state, and federal partner is aligned. We're working toward the same goal of catching this individual.
Councilman, thank you. Councilman Gonsalves there from Providence. We'll have the update from state and local officials, federal officials. Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our news.
Pretty wild. So we've got, it sounds like at least one, if the last name is an indicator, Muslim student killed. Which is strange because there's rumors of this person being a pro-Palestinian type person. We're going to take a look here at a professor's firsthand account during the shooting.
Brown University students were studying for an exam Saturday afternoon when the shots started ringing out. And I want to bring in Joseph Oduro, who is a teaching assistant at Brown University, was in the classroom leading a study session when the gunman opened fire. Thank you so much for being here. I am so sorry for what you had to witness. I'm glad that you were okay. Can you explain what went down?
It's hard to really put to words. It all really happened so fast. I think the number one thing for me is just making sure everybody's okay, and the community is safe and everybody feels like there's some type of peace on campus.
Yeah, understandable. Can you just describe what was happening in the classroom when the gunman came in?
Yeah, we just finished up our last review session of the year. And then we ended a little bit late. It ended around like 4:03. And I was giving my closing remarks. And then as soon as everybody stood up and started exiting the room, we heard what sounded like gunshots outside the door, and we heard screaming from various students. And then about 5 seconds later, we see a gunman enter the room, and then he just screamed something and just started shooting.
So you saw the gunman enter the room where you were?
Yeah, I was standing in the front of the auditorium, and he came through the back. So we pretty much directly made eye contact. And then as soon as that happened, I looked at my students and signaled them to come to the front, and then I just ducked.
And was the gunman shooting when he entered the room?
No, he came in, pointed the gun, and then he screamed something. I don't know what he said, and none of the other students know what he said, but yeah, then he just started shooting right after that. So
Excuse me, I was muted. I stand corrected. I thought this was it seemed like a targeted shooting where just a couple of students were singled out. But this does seem to fit in with a lot of these other shootings where these individuals are going in and just opening fire indiscriminately.
from that moment to the first gunshot, it was probably around 5 to 7 seconds.
So what I'm hearing you saying is that you already had heard the gunshot outside the classroom, and then all of a sudden he appeared in your classroom, screamed something, and
we
then...
heard what sounded like gunshots outside, yes, but my mind didn't necessarily go to gunshots right away, just because we're at Brown University. It's an Ivy League institution. You don't really assume the first loud sound you hear is gunshots until you see the gun right in front of you and you could see it going on.
I can't even imagine how terrifying that was. You're the person in charge. You're the TA in the classroom helping these students study, and you look up and there is a man with a gun, and he started to shoot in the auditorium where you were leading the study session. I know it's probably a blur, but what unfolded from there?
As soon as he started shooting, I just wanted to make sure that the rest of the students and I were safe. And then from the time that transpired, I made sure to call 911 and DPS, and I tried to let them know the situation, but with it still being extremely fresh and it honestly feeling like super unreal, I couldn't really explain any real details other than that we were in the room of Harrison Holly 166, and I was with around 20 students hiding behind that desk. So it was mostly just mumbling, trying to get as much help as I could.
Cannot even imagine the chaos, the confusion, the downright terror, trying to keep people orderly so as to minimize the amount of people that could possibly get hurt. All that on this young man's plate.
Yeah.
Around 20 students behind one desk. Can you describe the sort of physical layout of where you were a little bit more?
Yeah, so the desk is probably a length of around 10 feet or so, and we all just hid behind it as best as we could. There wasn't too much space, but we made do because at the end of the day, we just all wanted to survive.
And was he shooting towards you?
He was shooting, the first couple gunshots went straight to the chalkboard, exactly where I was standing. So who knows, if I didn't duck, maybe I'm not here today. That's something we don't know.
Did it appear indiscriminate, or did it appear that he was looking for somebody?
That part, I'm not too sure. As soon as I locked eyes with him and his gun, I immediately looked at my residence and dropped down, and I didn't look up until DPS was here telling us that everything was going to be okay.
Do you have any sense of how long he was in the classroom shooting before he left?
It honestly felt like an eternity. So I don't know how long time just went.
Were any of the students who you were trying to protect injured?
There was actually a girl who was sitting right next to me. She had 2 bullets in her legs, and she's currently at the hospital right now.
What's her status? How is she doing? Do you know?
I left the hospital yesterday, so I don't know her exact status, but I gave her a call yesterday, and she was in good spirits. And I know her surgery is taking place this morning, so I'm just praying that her surgery goes well.
Did you have training for this?
As much training as you could possibly get when there's an active shooter. You're never going to be prepared when it actually takes place. So I just wanted to make sure that I was okay and everybody else was okay, and I did that the best way I felt like I could.
I mean, you're 21 years old, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm 21.
So you are a teaching assistant, rather, a TA at an Ivy.
It's just so crazy. I mean, I'm from Oregon, and I remember we had the Kip Kinkle case, which was pretty much like the first school shooting case. And that took place, I think it was a grade school. And then, you know, we saw the shootings at high schools and junior high schools and grade schools. And now we're seeing them happen at, I mean, there have been shootings at colleges before, but now we're seeing the same type of indiscriminate, just walking into classrooms and opening fire at colleges. I mean, it's pretty shocking stuff. We're going to jump over to Live Now Fox for another update on this case here.
Now, police on Saturday initially announced a suspect was in custody, but then corrected the statement to say no one was there. The next morning, investigators revealed they detained a person of interest, but later in the day, they explained that person was determined not to be the shooter, and that person was let go, leaving a search underway for the gunman. There's a lot to discuss here as the case does progress, so I do want to bring in Brian Higgins, the founder of Group 77 and a former police chief and director of public safety. Thank you so much, Brian, as always, for taking the time to be here with us.
Of course, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And first off, I do want to start by asking you, because we have this new quote unquote enhanced video that was released by the Providence Police Department on Tuesday. What stands out to you? What is it that people who are looking at this video need to be paying attention to?
So the technology today allows law enforcement to take camera video footage and enhance it to the point where the pixelation that creates the images are much clearer. So what we now have is a clear image of the outline of the person, a little better coloration. We also have a better understanding of how this person walks and moves about. As the police chief said earlier, he wants residents and businesses in the area to look back not just on the day of the shooting, but weeks prior to see if this person had set up a pattern. So this allows individuals who may have come across this person to say, oh, I know who that person is, or this is where I've seen him before.
When you get to this point here, as I mentioned, we're on day 5 of what some would call a manhunt, a search for a person of interest and essentially a suspect here. What are some of the investigative challenges in identifying and apprehending someone when you are 5 days in?
Well, it's the farther out you go, the more difficult it is to keep the trail, if you will, the investigation warm. What you have to do is continue to follow leads, but the farther out those leads are, you finally can investigate them to the full extent. If you have no other information, it's much more difficult to build a case. But at the same time, you have this technology that's out there, some of it you and I aren't even aware of, that will allow law enforcement to track this individual's movements. So as time goes on, yes, current leads may be coming to a conclusion, but hopefully law enforcement is acquiring more facts and more leads.
And what you're looking at is that surveillance video, again, enhanced. It's right there on the left-hand side of your screen. Police, as I mentioned, asking folks who live in that area anywhere near the university to check their surveillance cameras. And
it's interesting, you hear at the briefing, we heard the chief of police there asking for, help from the local public and saying things like, oh, this is going to require old-fashioned police work, knocking on doors and this and that and the other. What that indicates to me is that the shooter wasn't using a cellular device or any kind of device that could be tracked. Because we know these days that is a huge shortcut for our law enforcement officials. So if he's not wearing any kind of device, like a cell phone, a biometric device like a watch or something like that, that is pinging local towers and identifying where he is and what he's doing at what moments, then the police do actually have to do their job and start knocking on doors and asking around. It's clear they have a big lead with that picture they released at the briefing today, as it definitely seems to match the individual we're seeing in this video. But that's about the only break that we've seen them have in days.
And essentially see if maybe they see something out of the ordinary or someone who looks like the person in those images and provide that to police. Now, I also want to mention that we've learned a lot about the victims here, and I do want to pop up their images for you for just a second to give you a look, because one of them is the vice president of the college Republicans there on campus. But we have learned from police, they say there's no evidence here that the victims were specifically targeted. How do investigators go about making that determination? I'm sure each case is kind of different, but how do they decide if someone was specifically targeted?
So it's multifaceted levels of this investigation. First and foremost are going to be eyewitness identification, individuals who were in the room at the time the shooting occurred. If the shooter particularly identified these suspects, moved past others to shoot them, that would indicate they were targets. If they were just people moving about in a room and were struck with gunfire, then there isn't any indication that they were targeted. Now, as this investigation goes on, there may be more information that is uncovered, but what the police are saying is, based on the current evidence and information they have, they can't identify them as particular targets.
I want to pop up this statement as well. This is actually coming in from Brown University, and it brings up another topic that I want to discuss, because it says, in the aftermath of the shooting, we've seen harmful doxing activity directed toward at least one member of the Brown University community. It's important to make clear that targeting individuals could do irreparable harm there. Accusations, speculation, and conspiracies we've seen on social media and in some news reports are irresponsible, harmful, and in some cases dangerous for the safety of individuals in our community. It is not unusual as a safety measure to take steps to protect an individual's safety when this kind of activity happens, including in regard to their online presence. As law enforcement officials stated clearly on Tuesday afternoon, if this individual's name had any relevance to the current investigation, they would be actively looking for this individual and providing information publicly. Now, that brings up, as I mentioned, another topic here, because you do have names that are released of, let's say, persons of interest. And again, it's important to note that Brown University did not specifically say that is who they're talking about. But when you have names released, when you have this information that's floating around on social media and is not relevant to the case, how does that make it more difficult for community members and also for police who are simply trying to work the investigation but now have something else to worry about?
Yeah, Josh, on several levels, this kind of muddies the water when it comes to the investigation. There are going to be at least questions. Law enforcement's going to be asked, did you check this person out? How much did you check them out? Even though law enforcement believes that they're not connected. They're always kind of justifying their actions. At the same time, Josh, law enforcement is going to follow the facts as they unfold. They may have enough resources to check out these ancillary investigative leads, if you will, or just claims, but it can hurt more the public participation. If the public thinks that law enforcement has already identified their suspect, they may not be so willing or energetic to share information they have already. The other issue is the safety of these people who are being identified online. If they haven't committed this crime, there are those who think they have. And we've seen examples of this, not always in crime situations, but people who are involved in innocuous events at sporting events and such, where they're identified online, and then a week later we find out that's not the person. In the meantime, their personal life has been completely turned upside down.
And we want to make sure that folks out there who are watching this are taking a close look at that surveillance video. Again, if you think you know who this person is, make sure that you do call Providence Police to get that information out there. Now, also want to pop this up on your screen coming in from FBI Boston on their social media. And as I mentioned here, they're trying to get those images out there. They say the FBI, in coordination with our partners there at the Providence Police Department and Rhode Island State Police, releasing an updated video timeline showing the movements of the person of interest in the mass shooting there at Brown University. My last question for you here, when you're talking about a big college campus that has a lot of students, we do know that a shelter-in-place order was in effect as all of this was unfolding there on Saturday. But after they believe there that they did get that person of interest in custody, the shelter-in-place order was lifted. It was never put back into place. But how do investigators, schools, everyone involved determine whether or not to reinstate a shelter-in-place or just leave it as is?
So, Josh, a shelter-in-place or lockdowns are meant to protect people during a shooting is occurring. Really, the ultimate goal is to get people away from the shooting, to get people away from an area that may be unsafe. So once that lockdown, that shelter in place is lifted, it's the goal.
Okay, so we're going to, because you know me, I love my alternative news sources. So we're going to take a look at a video. Now, this is probably is considered a bit controversial. Now we saw the gentleman. This is a Devory Darkins show. Who, if you're not subscribed, make sure you go and subscribe to Devory Darkins. There's evidence showing that the gentleman they posted in that picture, the Brown University has gone and removed his information from their database. Now that could be. They kind of alluded to it in that statement, where in certain cases, law enforcement asks us to remove the digital presence of someone. Well, it looks like Mr. Darkins has identified what has been removed. Let's take a look at this, as I think this is pretty interesting.
Okay, so let's just get to it. The guy you see here on the screen is what X is speculating about regarding who the shooter is. Why? Well, because the authorities have no definitive evidence to help them figure out who the suspect is, which is why they're asking for the public's help. We'll get to that later in this video, of course. But the reason why people are speculating that he is the shooter is, number one, he matches the body frame of the shooter, the mannerisms. Two, his information has already been scrubbed from the Brown University website. You'll hear their response to that. Three, there's a now deleted manifesto that has been found. It was published in the Institute for Palestine Studies. And five, I mean, some people, and again, we'd have to look further into this, say that he actually supports the same group who plotted to commit a terrorist attack on New Year's Eve called Turtle Island. So you hear all that stuff. It's very compelling. Of course, we don't know it to be a definitive fact, but this is what the internet is already saying. Now let's hear more about the excuses on why the authorities don't have better video footage or photos of the shooter. Listen to this.
As the manhunt stretches past the 72-hour mark, people are asking why there's not more video from the university. This map of the scene shows the crime happened on the edge of campus, giving the shooter a clear path to dodge most of the campus surveillance cameras. But a new report reveals that Brown's cameras weren't linked to a Providence PD real-time crime center anyways. City leaders revealing today that while there's clear video of the carnage inside this building, none of it shows the person of interest.
I mean, just imagine being the family members of the people who have been injured and unfortunately the people who lost their lives in this heinous attack, hearing that not only do we not have video footage, we don't have any photos, and the system that could have provided that wasn't even linked up with the local police department. And on top of that, the excuses that the authorities continue to release on why that is, I'll let you hear it for yourself from their words. But I will say this is a wake-up call for the universities across our nation. The security of the students should be
I'll tell you what else. It really shows in just what terrible shape the security of these schools are. I mean, it's incredible that we had a Columbine happen over 20 years ago. And we're essentially using the same type of security measures we were using then. There might be a couple extra checks and balances. Maybe you have to show your ID before you walk into the building officially. But really, we haven't seen any major changes in the way that we handle this stuff. And then you think about this university with something like 1,200 cameras, all the money in the world, yet they don't have access to the actual video recordings that were made during this incident. It's incredible.
The number one priority, and some of the adjustments here that we're calling for at this point, they're not going to cost that much money compared to or relative to how much the university is worth. Now, having said that, let's start with the very first question here, because this is a live press conference that just occurred. And here's what they had to say about the video footage. Take a listen.
In terms of cameras inside and outside the engineering building, are those working at all? And if so, why not release some of those videos?
So the video that we showed you came from inside the building, and that's all we had at the moment. That was all we have at this moment. Correct.
Inside the engineering building, though?
Right. And that's what we just watched. So apparently they have these video cameras at these other buildings, but they are not connected to the appropriate system or something like that. Okay. This is going to be kind of last thing we cover on the Brown shooting, and then we're going to jump back over to the Bondi Beach shooting.
I want to go now to Brown University, where there is still a killer on the loose. And one does not take any comfort from what's happening with the local authorities. I want to give you what Mayor Brett Smiley said on an interview with Good Morning America. Hold on a second. Let's just make sure this is what he's talking about. He's talking about whether the suspect who was in custody, the person of interest, but then he got released. He's talking about whether that the person of interest has been fully cleared. Here he is on GMA. Watch this.
So you're absolutely convinced the person of interest had nothing to do with this?
We're not saying that definitively. What we're saying is that after a review of the evidence that was gathered, it was determined that the person of interest needed to be released.
Okay, so that's him yesterday morning saying we are not saying definitively that that person of interest is fully cleared. Later that day, yesterday, the Attorney General, this is the mayor, the Attorney General, Peter Nerona of Rhode Island, reiterated that the person who was detained and released yesterday is no longer a person of interest. Quote, he has been cleared. He has been cleared. But the mayor, when asked whether the suspect had been fully cleared, quote, we're not saying that. Indeed, you are saying that through your Attorney General, you idiot. Like,
yeah, no kidding.
How are they not on the same page with that, you guys?
Like it should be at least a conference call, right? Maybe just a heads up that we think something about this grisly situation.
Hey, I'm about to go on national
Cleared or not
television.
cleared?
Yeah,
you know,
make sure to book the national television and then then give an answer that shitty.
Right. That's the problem with so many of these politicians. They're like, hey, this is my chance for fame, rather than here is a terrible thing that's happened in my community. I need to get to the bottom of it and let somebody else talk to the national press. You know what I mean? Like this is a terrible trend in our politics, and national media only feeds it. And I mean, who cared? Like the mayor on Good Morning America, the ratings aren't what they used to be on Good Morning America. The guy needs to do his job and help this community who he was elected to serve.
Yeah. No, the public only
appreciates. You know why he can't, Ashbrook? He explained why he can't do his job that easily. He's got some issues, and I think, hold on a second, I want to make sure. Here it is. Here are some of his issues. This is from a Monday afternoon presser, SOT 11.
Everyone you see behind us, we've all been working for now 49 hours. We're tired. We're serious about the task at hand. I know all of you have been working very hard, and I suspect all of you are just as tired.
Bro,
no one cares you're tired.
I would get up and let him have a piece of my mind. We got Mayor McCheese. Well, I mean, what's the population of this town? This guy thinks he's like the president. What are you talking about? You're tired. 49 hours?
I mean, that is the most... If I was one of the family members of the victims, I'd be like, you can take that tired and you can stick it up your ass. Are you kidding me? Oh, you've been working over 40 hours on this case, you poor thing.
You don't even get your facts straight. What is your job, first of all? Like, what is the responsibilities you have? Because keeping your people safe and everyone on the same page, you haven't done that. I think that's like the basic job of any elected office, right? How did no one get up and just slap him?
Boy, they've slid a long way since Buddy Cianci, haven't they? Over there, Buddy would have had that guy cuffed and stuffed. The former Providence mayor.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. I don't know. How do you know the former mayor of Providence?
Oh, this guy there.
Yeah, Buddy Cianci used to be a wonderful mob town.
Yeah, exactly.
Raymond Patriarcha.
You got to get up on this. There's a Crime Town.
Oh.
Yeah, Crime Town. It's a good podcast.
It's a good podcast. You should check it out. But it examines the rule of Buddy Cianci.
It holds Italians accountable, but I don't think
but of which I can promise you that in Buddy Cianci's Providence, none of this would be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we've got Mayor Smiley, who's super smiley and tired. Joke. Really tired. It's very hard to track down a killer. No one feels sorry for you. I don't know why on earth he would say such a thing, but he did say such a thing. And by the way, just in case you're feeling confident about the Attorney General, who apparently set the record straight by saying, oh, no, the guy's been cleared. We have moved on. He's the same Attorney General who put this woman on leave, but then kept employed his assistant Attorney General named Devin Hogan Flanagan, who you may remember from a couple of months ago.
He's one of our favorites.
August. Right? Who was boozing it up at a Newport restaurant, very drunk, and started to play the I'm an AG card. Here she is in SOT 12.
I want you to turn your body cam off. Protocol is that you turn it off. If a citizen requests it to turn it off. She's a lawyer.
So they want you guys to leave?
Yes, we're not.
Let's just leave. Let's just make it easy, okay?
We're gonna make it easy. That's not.
You guys just want him out? Do you want him trespassed?
Anything we can do. Trespass, yeah. I just need
Trespass, get him out.
Please.
So you're trespassed, or we gotta leave now? Unless you want to be in
We're not trespassing. You haven't notified us that we're trespassing. Number one.
What did I just say to you? You're trespassed. Let's go.
Number one.
I don't want to
two.
arrest you guys.
What did I just say?
You're not gonna arrest us. Number two
So let's
is
leave.
that
We gotta go. We gotta go.
protocol
Let's go.
is
Let's
to
go.
keep them down for 1 second.
I think this is where she shows us the world.
So she knows.
Well, that's lawyer stuff, so that's not true. So we gotta go.
No, it is. That's law. I'm an
What's she
AG.
saying?
I'm an AG.
Good for you. I don't give a shit. Let's
You're
go.
so fancy.
Good for you.
I'm glad you ended
for
that
you.
clip where I take it got a little racy.
Is this the first time a Flanagan got a too many Guinness deep and started trouble in Providence?
No, he's
This should be Saturday night.
lot of bashing of the Irish. All right, hold, slow your roll. There, smug.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's still gainfully employed, and for all we know, working on this case. Who the hell knows? Here's another one for you. This is Colonel Oscar Perez. What's his role in this? He was at the presser Monday afternoon. This is the police chief, and listen to this, because the reporter asked the question that we all want to know the answer to. We've all heard the reports about this shooter allegedly yelling Allahu Akbar before the shooting. Unconfirmed. The reporter phrases it a little differently, but listen to this non-answer. Sadi.
Now, there's a report the shooter yelled something right before his shot came in. Could you tell us what that was?
Yeah, it's part of the investigation, John, and we'll, yeah.
Now, the only reason I asked that, though, is, for instance, like with the Unabomber, his brother recognized the writing. So it's possible a friend or family member might recognize if the person said something that was significant.
Correct.
That's why you don't, other than the 9mm, is there anything else inside that auditorium that you could tell us?
No, that's correct. And listen, like I said earlier, investigations will bring us to evidence that we need to collect in order to be able to prosecute. With that being said, we're going to continue to collect evidence, and if it leads us to something to that nature, that's going to be extremely helpful.
I'm going to go ahead and say he didn't shout Merry Christmas. Okay.
I think that's probably, yeah.
And also, what is with that reporter, somehow tying this to the Unabomber? like maybe we're going to discern something.
You don't have to justify.
And these two words the guy said.
He was extremely scared to ask the obvious question.
The obvious question. Did he say Allahu Akbar?
We had 35 years of terrorist attacks in this country since the Unabomber.
Yeah.
And it kind of had some similarities. I don't know if anybody's paying attention.
But nor, as a reporter, do you have to justify your question, especially at a presser. We only get one shot. Just, did he yell what did he yell? There are reports it was Allahu Akbar. Can you confirm?
Right.
That's it. Get up and down on your question.
Yes.
Don't give me a history lesson. No one cares about Ted Kaczynski in this moment. We have a killer to find. My God, like the ineptitude. So now yesterday they did release additional pictures. They're going to other houses now because since apparently of the hundreds of security cameras across Brown University, they don't have one on this building.
Amazing.
And they don't have one showing the suspect in any way that's clear. So now they're going to area houses asking for like their ring cam video, and they've put out, let's air them. I mean, it's a little tough. All we know is this guy is husky. He's husky. And they're saying he might be around 5'8", and not a thin guy. Looks like an overeater.
Oh, this is the
big bone
best
to
we
me.
have?
Yeah.
This is what your Ivy League tuition goes to? Let's hope the neighbors got ring cameras?
Boy, the civil libertarians know where to move.
I mean, it's also called police work, but yeah.
Huh?
I mean, this is unbelievable. This is unbelievable.
Right? How are we going to catch this guy like this, you guys? It's not like Luigi, where at least when he was on the run, remember he had gone to like that, this is the best one right here. Luigi had gone to like some soup kitchen or something, and he had pulled down his mask when he was looking at that girl.
Yeah.
And so we did have a picture of his face, which is how they found him in that McDonald's. This guy, so far, nothing. And here we are. Now it's Tuesday. This happened Saturday. We don't know where he is. And
well, they did release the photo today. So I think the photo they released today of that individual is probably that individual that they believe was the shooter. I mean, the body type matched very heavily. We couldn't, unfortunately, we couldn't see his walk, but the picture looks very much like that shooter that was wearing that mask. Okay. Getting back to the Bondi shootings, again, this is just to stress how confusing and scary and disorienting these mass shootings can be. This is some footage from the Bondi Beach shootings. And again, if this kind of stuff is a trigger, if this kind of stuff is hard for you to watch, you know, please tune out. We don't want to be causing anyone to have, you know, a bad moment. So without further ado, here is a couple summaries of the Bondi Beach shootings.
Pero lo loco es que si no, en la arena.
Bro, there's a shooting at Bondi. What the hell, Yonte? Bro, there's actual shooting at Bondi right now. Listen, that's not good. Bro.
The son first came to attention in October 2019. He was examined on the basis of being associated with others, and the assessment was made that there was no indication of any ongoing threat or threat of him engaging in violence.
I mean, it's just tragic, y'all. How many of these shootings are going to happen? And it seems like it's always one group hating on another group for whatever random reason. And as far as the anti-Semitism goes, like, let's be real, it is at an all-time high. It's like the highest I've seen it since, like, Nazi Germany. Like, people are really anti-Semitic. However, Netanyahu went to and accused the Australian government of not doing enough to prevent this attack on this Jewish gathering, this Hanukah gathering. This is the Prime Minister of Australia's response to what Netanyahu said.
It was an act of pure evil, an act of anti-Semitism, an act of terrorism on our shores in an iconic Australian location, Bondi Beach, that is associated with joy, associated with families gathering, associated with celebrations. And it is forever tarnished by what has occurred last evening. This was an attack deliberately targeted at the Jewish community on the first day of Hanukah, which of course should be a joyous celebration. And the Jewish community are hurting today. Today, all Australians wrap our arms around them and say, we stand with you. We will do whatever is necessary to stamp out anti-Semitism. It is a scourge and we will eradicate it together. The Australian Federal Police and ASIO are working closely with New South Wales authorities, and the briefing we've just had, we have had the AFP there, and the AFP Commissioner will return to Australia today. We will dedicate every single resource that is required in responding to this. To the brave responders, first responders, including ordinary citizens who acted yesterday, thank you for what you do. People rushing towards danger to show the best of the Australian character. That's who we are, people who stand up for our values. Flags will fly at half-mast across the country today as we pay our respects to all those lost and all those who have been injured. And we conclude by saying that yesterday was indeed a dark day in our nation's history, but we as a nation are stronger than the cowards who did this. I thank world leaders who have reached out, from President Trump, President Macron, Prime Minister Starmer, others right around the world have reached out to Australia at this time, and we thank you for your sympathy and your solidarity with our values. Australia will never submit to division, violence or hatred, and we will come through this together. We refuse to let them divide us as a nation.
Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu has laid some blame on your feet. What is your response to Netanyahu's comments yesterday that were pretty blunt?
This is a moment for national unity. This is a moment for Australians to come together. That's precisely what we will be doing.
Is it a failure that these men weren't seriously on the radar of our authorities?
Look, our authorities do an extraordinary job. As Commissioner Lanyon has said, investigations have already made some progress. The fact that there were raids on the home in Bonnyrigg and at Campsie last night, we will continue to provide every resource possible to the AFP and as well to our intelligence and security agencies.
I have 2 children go to school, and I remember the first day I took my daughter to kindergarten and dropped her off and had to leave her. Like, actually leave her. I was a single dad at the time. It was just me and her ever since she was real little. And it was the first time I was taking her and leaving her under the care of another adult. And it was scary. And I think it was probably harder for me than it was for her. But there was this feeling like she's going to be safe there, right? Because of all the staff and the teachers, the students, like, she'll be okay. And then the Newtown school shooting happened. And it was like no more just deranged high school kids shooting up other high school kids. It was like now it's kids with serious mental diseases going into grade schools and murdering children. And it absolutely terrified me. But as we know, that's no way to live. We can't let fear dictate our decisions. So she's much older now. She's still in school. And there hasn't been a violent shooting. Thank God. But I've also got a younger one coming up. And it's a real fear. And I don't know that more laws are going to fix it. I think people in general need to fix themselves. That's what I think. Because you hear it on all the, time and time again, and you read it on the bumper stickers, guns don't kill people, people kill people. And it's absolutely true. If it wasn't a gun, it'd be a knife. If it wasn't a knife, it'd be a brick. If it wasn't a brick, it'd be a baseball bat. I mean, if someone wants to murder someone, they're going to find a way. But do guns and bullets just make it too easy? I don't know. But this is a problem. And I have heard absolutely no talk. None. Zero. Of innovative solutions. Cover a lot of breaking news on this channel. A lot of new science and technological innovation breakthroughs. Where's the breakthrough that's going to stop guns from working in a school? Where's that at? At any rate, thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this live coverage of both Bondi Beach, Australia shooting and the Brown University shooting, where if you look at the up to the minute coverage, we still have an active shooter out there. So if you're in the area, please beware, be careful, be vigilant, keep your head on a swivel, and stay safe. Thank y'all for watching.